Hi everyone, today we're going to take a look at the new moon in Taurus occurring in May 19th, 2023, 11:53 a.m. Eastern Time, but times will vary. Because it's so close to midnight, I'm sure it's going to be on May 18th for many people in the world. My name is Vickieverlie and I'm the Rock and Roll Prophetess, and if you've never watched my videos, I am a seasoned astrologer of more than maybe 30 years I've been doing astrology, but I've been a psychic far longer. So I integrate the two things, and it's definitely more of a psychic reading. Even though we are going to be discussing astrology, it's going to include psychic downloads from my guides and insights from my guides. So a little bit different. I tend to color outside the lines quite a bit. If you think you'd like that, then stay tuned, because we're going to talk about this new moon. Again, I'm Vickieverlie. Do not be fooled by imposters. Okay, here we go. The new moon is happening at 28 degrees of Taurus. This 28-29 degree point in Taurus, what's a critical degree, or lately a lot of people have been calling it an anaretic degree. I was always called it a critical degree, but in any case, this is specifically in the sign of Taurus. We're talking about, this is that lose your head thing. So in the olden days, when people would have this kind of aspect in their chart, of this placement in their chart, often they would end up being beheaded. And it was during the time when people were beheaded often, you know, which doesn't happen as much anymore. It's not a laughing matter at all, but it is a time in modern day. Well, there's the famous story of the actress, I believe it was Jane Mansfield, who had that degree, and she was in a car crash and ran under a truck and actually was beheaded. But in this modern day, this was maybe back in the 50s or 60s or something. But they always use that story to illustrate, you know, the lose your head thing. But in this modern day, we tend to look at it more in a way of don't lose your head, like don't lose your temper, don't go overboard, you know, things like that. And that phrase that's been coming through so much with me lately, if you can keep your head when others are losing theirs, you know. So it's kind of like this stay calm thing. It's also not really wrapping up the eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, because we will have one more in the fall, but it feels that way. It feels like this culmination of this last year and a half when we have had the eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio. And it's kind of just an ending of this cycle, as the nodes, as you can see, are going to be moving out of the down, because the nodes move backwards. They start at 29 and move down to 0. So the node is at 3 degrees. It's in their end of Scorpio and Taurus, and they're on their way out. You know, they're on their way out of that that axis, this Taurus-Scorpio axis, and they're going to be traveling into the Aries-Libra axis. Now that's a lot of astrology, I know. Now we're going to kind of get into the reading, but you know, it can be a thing of don't lose your head, don't go overboard. You know, when I open this chart, which I always just let it kind of fall all over me. Oh, what's that song? All over me, all over you. Da, 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 da. Well, anyways, I'm not sure what song it is. If you know it, I think it's just called All Over Me. If you haven't seen my videos before, I am the Rock and Roll Prophetess, because I'm a lifelong musician. And I will break into song prompted by my guides. It's not just, you know, they come through with songs, and often the songs have meaning. They have even, and sometimes we'll explore the lyrics further, and the lyrics will even have, you know, some more meanings, more than meets the eye. They just came through with. There's more than meets the eye. Well, isn't there always, right? There's always more than meets the eye. I am going to pull those up right really quick. All over me lyrics. But anyways, so there's a major concentration in the sign of Taurus. That's what grabbed me right here. It's just like you've got starting all the way at 0, where Jupiter's all the way at 0, and then all the way up to Taurus. I pulled up All Over Me, and it's some different one. It's some different one last drop of rain has dried on the pavement. So that's a different song. Oh, it must be a Taylor Swift song. See, I don't even know the artist. It was a late 90s, early 2000s. If anybody knows, leave it in the description. But anyways, because sometimes looking up those lyrics can have, you know, deeper meanings, especially when the guides come through with it. Our love is like water. That's the one. Okay, but let's get back to the reading. So, our love is like water. That's interesting. But look at this spread. I mean, we start at 0 at the very beginning and we go all the way to almost to the end at 28 degrees. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 placements in Taurus. So Taurus is fixed earth. Taurus likes to plant that flag and not change. Taurus doesn't like a lot of change and upsets in their lives. What we have Uranus smack dab in the middle, and Uranus has been traveling through there, so there is going to be upsets and change, and it's disruptive for Taurus as we're trying to find footing on this ever-changing landscape, finding footing in new ground, the new ground that's being churned up at this time of spring in the northern hemisphere too. They're showing me like turning over the dirt, like with a rototiller, or where it's just coming up and turning over. But that's how we plant the new seeds. And after all, even though it's this high degree, this is a new moon, and new moons are a time for new beginnings. Mercury has gone direct by this time. Mercury was talking about Taurus. Mercury was retrograde for quite some time. Right at this time, at the 19th, there's a whole bunch of different things going on. It's just this concentration of energy. The other thing is that Jupiter has just moved into Taurus, another thing, and is conjuncting the North Node. Jupiter conjuncting the North Node is very powerful. It's about finding our true north, following our soul collective. The North Node in your natal chart is always in finding your true north, your soul's mission. Your North Node reveals your soul mission in your birth chart, and that's part of the things I look into when I look into like a soul reading. So when it's in the collective, and when I read it in the collective, I feel like it's just for everybody. We're all trying to align with the new normal. We're coming out of this turbulent eclipse season. We're trying to find our footing amidst the shifting sands, amidst the changing tides. And the Jupiter being with the North Node can be really powerful in a very positive way. And actually we bring in the Mercury too, because it's at 6 degrees. So Mercury had been retrograde, Mercury's going direct now. We want to send out those messages to the world. We want to send out, to plant our flags. I keep saying this, the flag flying in the breeze on the mountain, like the fixed Taurus energy. We've climbed to the top of this mountain. That's more of a Capricorn thing, but this is the way it's being shown to me. And this, this flag is flying and it's like flapping in the wind. So we want to plant our flags. We want to, we get the all clear the guides are coming through with. We're getting the all clear to go ahead with our soul mission, announce it to the world, make those announcements, send those wedding, all the things that you may have perhaps been putting off during the Mercury retrograde. Now you can send them out, and I'm hearing sending out an SOS. That's the old police song. There's so many aspects going on. When I see this Jupiter North Node and these 0 degree things here, well, first thing is it's squaring with the Pluto. So Pluto is definitely going to force some change here. Pluto, though, is also, we always think of it as, it's death and rebirth and everything. But Pluto can also be, it's a very much a financial thing, especially when it's interacting with the sign of Taurus, which rules in the flat wheel, which is this, the 0 degree on each sign, we call it the flat wheel, or the whole sign astrology. By the way, too, I only use this whole sign astrology for these public readings. When I do your chart, it's going to be your wheel, But anyways, when we see Pluto interacting with Taurus, these could be big shifts in money throughout the, the zeitgeist there. Maybe there's going to be some big Wall Street or banking kind of, thing happening. But also it feels like, because we're doing this 0 thing, this is a new beginning. It's a new moon. These are just at the 0 is the 1st degree. It's like things that you launch at this time could be super powerful and be super long-reaching and super profitable. I'm going to make a noise real quick. Rocco, come on now. Why don't you go out in the other room? Go on, go lay down. It's my dog's coming in here. I want him to leave the room while we do the reading because he can be a little distracting and disruptive. But anyways, yeah, this is super powerful. And then we tie into, and squares make things happen. And with Pluto, it can be really abruptly. But maybe that doesn't have to be a bad thing. We don't have to get all worked up and afraid of, Pluto's squaring us, some big abrupt change is going to happen. If you're feeling stuck in any way, or you've been getting through these eclipses and the Mercury retrograde, and things have been kind of stalled or stuck or not going anywhere, a big breakthrough may be just what the doctor ordered or just what you're hoping for. So harness that energy. As always, we want to harness that energy, and we want to use it in a positive, powerful way that it can be used. The other thing that's going on is Saturn is also at this low degree, and it's making a harmonious sextile. Sextiles are harmonious and can allow for flow of energy, allow for ease and flow. Ease and flow, ease and flow. I align with ease and flow. That was the download I got from my guides that I mentioned during one of the eclipse readings. But yeah, that's ease and flow. The other thing is, because it's earth and water, whatever you're wanting to plant in the earth with all this Taurus energy, the Saturn comes along and waters it. Because you can't just plant the seeds and walk away. You've got to water it. You've got to nurture it. Saturn also will give you a strong foundation. Saturn wants to get behind things that have legs, that have a solid foundation, that are going to be long-lasting. For some, you may be interacting with some of these old school, because Pluto can be that too a little bit, and then Saturn for sure, these old school, old paradigm things, which we often think of as restrictive, but maybe, there's merit in it. There could be merit in it. Maybe some old, I think I mentioned this in one of the other videos, but maybe some old school kind of established, patriarchal, yes, with Saturn, but they can help. It doesn't have to be the enemy or against, fighting against the man, It could be some kind of really big established thing that's going to aid and that's going to help you, or that you can utilize, because Saturn is I use. Those are the key words of Saturn. I use. So how can you use this energy to create foundations? And it could be, interacting with old established things, but that you can, because the Uranus is involved too in here. So we want to do, and Pluto is in Aquarius, which is Uranian, because of course, if you're not following me, Uranus and Aquarius over here are the same energy. So we're taking the old and we're using it in new ways. And it could be very beneficial for forging these new paths and these new trails that we are longing to do. And we've been longing to do, but it's just been a cluster, That's what the guides came through with. I don't want to get flagged on YouTube, a cluster fudge of energetic, all kinds of stuff going on here. So things are smoothing out, in other words. I mean, there's some squares, but maybe abrupt change is called for, or coveted, or helpful, or needed. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. The new moon itself at this high degree of 28 degrees that we've got over here, we've got the Mars at 29 degrees of Cancer. We've got the Neptune at, that one really is grabbing me. It's also, there's sextiling, and in this chart, the Neptune and Mars are trining each other. Very different energy, almost complete opposites. Neptune is in its own sign of Pisces. It's watery, it's spiritual, it's creative, it's self-expression, it's your soul language, your soul song. And then the Mars is all the trailblazer forwards. Let's boots on the ground. Let's fight our way through it. We're going to fight and win. This kind of thing. But Mars can also just give you the fire. Because sometimes when we're in this dreamy realm of Neptune, and it's all great, and it's all cool, we're meditating, we're listening, we're doing music, we're in this almost altered state. We're not quite in touch with the 3D reality. This Mars could really just bring it right in, and the Taurus could absolutely bring it right in. Because a lot of times you have these floaty ideas, and it's all beautiful and magical, but then you really don't do anything with it. A lot of times you just don't. I mean, I don't. Sometimes if I'm lucky, I'll write it in a notebook, and I've got stacks of notebooks, and I've got stacks, folders full of files of ideas, and my phone is full of them and everything. So, this is, to some extent, the Aquarian energy, but the Neptune is, the universe is always broadcasting. I think that's one of the very first videos I ever did on this channel. And that's why there's a rush to the patent office, because it's out there. In the collective field. That's what Neptune could be, like the collective field. So it's out there, and it's, it's in the subconscious mind, but, often we're busy with our day-to-day life, and, not everybody even has the luxury. But I would say it's not a luxury. I would say it's it's part of self-care. In my case, it totally is. It's not a luxury. It's something that you need to dive into, the psychic, the spiritual, the creative. But what, I'm not putting any judgments on that. That aside, excuse me, I just need a little drink of water real quick. Put that aside. Sometimes it can be hard to manifest the Neptunian energy into the 3D reality because it's a realm unto itself. So with these connections to this earthy, grounded Taurus energy, that channel is open for everyone, and we can utilize that, and we can use that to ground that spiritual, capture that magic, capture that lightning in a bottle. That's a little bit of the Iranian energy too, but the same thing that would apply, because it's still, we're working with this Taurus energy. I don't think there's anything in this chart that's not aspecting something in this vast array of Taurian energy, you know. So, you know, you can look at it the other way around. It can make you feel maybe ungrounded if you're not used to it. You know, you could look, there's an up and a down side, positive and negative, to any aspect, any planetary setup in, you know, that you can think of. But things are going to be grounded at this time. And the things that are trying to be grounded with the Jupiter conjunct the North Node are for our highest good, are for our following our soul path. With the Neptune, we're singing our soul song. Sing your soul song. If I had to do a headline, I don't usually do headlines for the astrology videos here, but sing your soul song. That is what's going on right now. Moving forward, we're entering this new age. We're making these abrupt turns. The Taurus energy is here. The ground has been tilled. You know, things have been uprooted, and there's been upheaval. There's been quite a bit of upheaval. But now it's time to plant those seeds, sow those seeds. So plant those seeds in the freshly tilled soil for new growth and positive things to happen. So it's super powerful. I'm really excited about it, especially with the Jupiter conjunct the North Node. I mean, that is really, really cool energy. I'm not sure on the cycle of how often that does happen, but it's not like it happens every year. It's you know, it's a semi. I guess I could look it up real quick. I don't really want to break flow. Oh, I just turned on my tablet over here, and it was 11:11 right now. That's the time. But anyways, let me just really quickly look it up. I don't have the phone here. It'd be easier if I have to type it. Okay, how often does Jupiter conjunct the North Node? Okay. There's nothing coming up really, you know, it's talking about this particular transit, everything that's coming up on it. Oh, it's a very fortunate period of your life, which happens approximately every 12 years. So, yeah, I don't know that it happens every 12 years. I don't think that that's really true. That would be in your natal chart. They're talking about your natal chart. Yeah, Jupiter will go over your own natal North Node every 12 years. But it's not all the time. Let's just put it that way. It's sort of a rare occurrence. I'm sure it's happened more than once in our lifetimes, but you know, we got to make hay while the sun shines. You know, that this is that lightning. This is the lightning. This is, maybe those, I could do better lightnings. These are the lightnings. Pluto and Aquarius is shooting out those lightnings. And then Taurus is capturing it. Let's capture that lightning in a bottle. Let's get those great big downloads and those spiritual insights. And then, it's the other thing about what I was talking about, the Neptune energy, yeah, and the creative, but also those spiritual insights. You know, we get those spiritual insights, or even our dreams, you know, be just like, oh, I had this great dream and I feel so great. But then we submerge ourselves back into the 3D reality, and pretty soon we're just back on the hamster wheel, doing our same old thing. You know, or people talk about when you go to a retreat, you come back from a retreat or a conference and you're vibing so high, and then you get back in, you know, it kind of wears off after a while once you get back in your old environment. These kind of aspects, this could be, you know, it's permanent change, taking a permanent right turn to a new reality, to a new life, planting those flags in the mountains. That's what they just keep showing me, those flags flying. Maybe that's going to be some kind of an event. I mean, it's not like in America we have the 4th of July. Well, actually, in America, we have the Memorial Day weekend, which flag people put their flags out. But maybe there's something, a bigger implication with that flag thing, because they just keep coming back to it. Or one of my favorite sayings, if you watch me all the time, I say it a lot, is letting your freak flag fly. Being your true self. Being your true self and letting it be true unto yourself, which is letting your freak flag fly. Even if it's unconventional. Even if it's outside the norm. Yay for you if you're outside the norm, because that's the future. That's the future. The older you are, the more you are indoctrinated into the paradigm, and even in schools. Education, because Jupiter rules over education. Education needs a complete overhaul. Because it's all old paradigm about memorizing things. Well, everybody has their access to a computer, their phone, or some kind of a device. We don't need to, education could just be, revolutionized in this time frame, especially with Pluto going into Aquarius. I'm picking that up. I know that may not be something you'd find in an astrology book, but I'm definitely picking that up. Well, it's squaring the Jupiter too. Because we don't need to sit there and memorize, unless you're going to go on a game show or something, I guess. I've been watching the Jeopardy Tournament of Champions or whatever, which I enjoy and I love. I'm a Jeopardy freak for sure. But what does memorizing all this knowledge, taking up space in your brain, really, how does it serve us? Back in the day, but even as an adult, I had to go to the library, and many of you remember this. If you wanted to find something out, you had to go to the library, and often your local branch didn't have the information that you needed, so you would have to order it in from some other branch, and you might be waiting weeks or even a couple months to get your hands on a book that you wanted to know this knowledge. Now we have this knowledge right at our fingertips. So why waste time with children testing them on memorization anymore? It's obsolete now, and it's definitely going to be obsolete in the future in their lifetimes. What could we do with that mind space? And even as adults, what can we do with that extra part space in our brain? There's a meme going around, what happened to the space in my brain where all my memory, all my phone numbers that I memorized were stored? Because that's a real basic thing we used to have to remember, write them down in phone books, or I could still remember 476-8102. That was my mom's house growing up phone number. So those were embedded in our brains, but we don't need to embed those in our brains anymore. We have auto dial, but even if we need the number, it's in there. It's in our device. It's stored in our device. And people are so afraid of AI. I'm so excited for AI. I'm really excited for AI. I saw a really good interview about it. Who was it? It was one, I can't even think of either of the people's name, the host's name. Host is Rich Roll, that's right. And he was interviewing this guy. It's a recent interview if you want to check it out. But this guy's like the authority on AI, and I so agree with him. He was like a machine. Well, what do you use a machine for? What kind of machine? Your toaster, your car? Those are all machines. And that really rang a huge bell with me, because my great-grandfather, I can remember this when I was little. He was still living, and he refused to ride in a car, and he called the car a machine. And he's like, I'm not riding in that machine. No. He wouldn't ride in the machine. And I mean, from 100 years later, well, from his time, not 100 years for me, I'm not quite that old. But 100 years later from his time, of course, cars are just a part of our lives. And we don't think that the car is going to take us over and kill us, I mean, some people have issues with the self-driving cars or whatever, but it's advancement. And this kind of scary, I mean, as an artist, I'm a little bit, I get that. I ordered something from somebody, an artwork thing on Etsy, and it's totally AI art. I was like, wow, I can see it's AI art, which, it kind of sucks for artists. There's things that are going to have to be ironed out. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. I was thinking back to not too long ago, back in the 80s, stem cell research. Oh my God, it's so evil. Think of all, and now we know it's a wonderful thing that saves lives. And there was all this fear-mongering going on around stem cell research. So this being afraid of the new is not going to fly anymore. Not, especially now that Pluto is in Aquarius. And I was thinking back, one more thing about the AI, because that interview was so interesting and so good. You should check it out if you want. But it was like, well, what about our phones, you know? That's AI. What about Google? That's AI. What about predictive text? That's AI. We want to go back to when the internet just started and you have to type in HTTP // www and then these long, URLs / blah, blah, blah. No, nobody wants to go back to that. It's making our life easier, and that way it frees us up to be more of the creative beings that we're meant to be. Okay. Now, I'm no expert on AI, and again, as far as the arts go, I do take issue with it on that front. And for writers, and even I guess there's going to be AI music, or there may be, I don't even know. But it's not the devil come to, it's these movies. It's like the Terminator. Oh, the machines took over, and we're hiding in the sewers. I don't see that trajectory either. I think it's great. I think it's exciting. And so we don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to the old paradigm. But see, this is, a lot of times this Taurus energy is that old paradigm. It's the people that have to be kicking and screaming, or just like with stem cells. Oh, it's this and it's that. Until, I think was it Nancy Reagan or was somebody? They were adamantly against it until it could help somebody in their family. Then they're like, oh, well, yeah, well, maybe stem cells aren't a bad thing. Sure, do we have to monitor it? Sure. We don't want to let, it's just like with the arts, we don't want to let it, there has to be some kind of, not paradigm, but some kind of rules set in place, or some kind of corralling it in. But it's not, listen to that interview, because this guy's very knowledgeable. And I was just like, yeah, you go, dude. Because I totally agree with 99% of what he said, It's not like this crazy machines. It's the advancement. And for all of us that are starseeds, we've lived in societies where we do have this advanced technology. So it's not anything to be feared. I say it again and again, we live in an expanding universe. So we can't stop rock and roll, and you can't stop the universe from expanding. Okay. All right. I'm waiting for those flying cars, right? When we were kids, we thought in the year 2000 we'd all be in George Jetson flying around in the flying cars, So, at any rate, this is a very powerful time for grounding. Because of the Taurus energy, and the squares, and the Mars being involved, there can be this opposition, or this fighting against, And just in general, I mean, this is just law of attraction 101. You don't want to fight against whatever you don't want. You want to be pro what you do want. And that's that famous quote from Mother Teresa. She says, I'll never be in an anti-war, I'll never go to your anti-war rally or participate in your anti-war rally. If you want to have a rally for peace, I'm the first one there. So you always, whatever you're against, you don't go out there and, I'm against this. You are for, you emphasize, you broadcast, you talk about what you are for, and you feed that energy. Or you can even do the old Native American about the two wolves. One is the dark side, and one is they're both part of us. And whichever one you feed is the one that grows. So technology is a wonderful blessing and a wonderful gift for us. I love technology. I'm a lot of people that are my age and older are, have this ooga booga thing about technology, but I wouldn't be coming to you right now if it wasn't for technology. So let's use the technology. Let's use the futuristic things that are being unveiled and that are coming out of the zeitgeist and the collective unconscious, and let's ground them right down into that reality, our 3D reality, because that's ultimately what we came here to do. We didn't come here to stay in the old or fight progress or fight the universe from expanding. We came here to be a part of this grand resonance of change that is occurring on the earth. I mean, I know it's way out there, but this is some way out there powerful stuff. This Neptune, the Neptune just grabs me. So yeah, it's sextiling the sun and moon, it's trining the Mars, and that's it. As always, I may have missed some things, and we could talk endlessly just about all this Taurus stuff, but I don't want to be too long in the tooth, or long in the tooth is old. I guess I'm kind of long in the tooth too, but long-winded. It was what I was trying to say. Hey everybody, I am opening up for that solstice reading. If you want to take a look at how these different planetary things are going to come in and potentially play out in your chart, this is that astrology mid-year update. I only offer transit astrology readings where I run your chart, not a whole sign, but by your ascendant and your houses. I actually do use K-O-C-H houses, only because that's what I was taught when I was learning. So I'm not going to fight you about the house system. It works for me, okay? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what works for me. But we will look at that. Another thing that I am looking at in the solstice reading is how the nodes change sign is going to affect you, because that will be, the solstice isn't just the day of the solstice. It's the mid-year update, but it also is the energetic frequency for at least, it sets the tone for at least the next quarter year, if not the rest of the year. So it's an important, milestone or pivoting point that's it to look at. As I've said many times, before I started doing YouTube, I never ran the new or full moon chart ever, but I ran those ingress charts, those cardinal ingress, those seasonal changes charts every time, and they proved to be over and over again very insightful, very helpful. So that will be available for a limited time. You can find that information on my website. I do offer regular, psychic tarot readings too, where I just look you up in the ephemeris. I do not run your chart if you order a 1 or 2 question. I just grab the data out of the ephemeris real quick and we dive into the psychic tarot reading. But if you are more geared toward astrology, this would be the time to get that solstice reading. And the other astrology reading that I always have available year-round is the soul reading, which is your past life, where I look at and tune into your soul mission. If you're curious about this North Node thing and what your soul mission might be, that is also covered in the soul readings that I do offer. All right, everybody, it's a new moon in Taurus, kind of a dichotomy because it's happening at these late degrees, so that's kind of a finishing up cycle. But it is powerful new moon, and the Mercury in Taurus is direct. We finished up eclipse season, so it's just like clear the decks. What are we going to plant these powerful seeds that are going to grow strong and grow roots and be the foundation and the roots from here going into the future and for generations to come. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and all that YouTube algorithm stuff. It's always so appreciated. Remember, you are love and beauty incarnate. We'll talk again soon. Bye.